And essentially what we were trying to see is that in today's day where even brands are under pressure to have continuous engagement and are expected to have a voice on different things that are happening, topical things, news, how do they go about managing that while still being a commercial entity trying to sell products, right? Who are we and why do we have a voice on this? Yougov is a data and analytics firm. Please excuse my sales pitch here, but just to let you guys know, we basically are a tech-enabled, online-only data platform. We work across the board with leading brands, agencies, to help them understand the consumers better and see ourselves as leaders in perception data. So all the data that I'll show you guys is really claimed data, surveys that have been fielded on consumers, and not necessarily any social listening or any other tools. So why are we talking about it right now? What we see is that lately, and especially in 2018, a lot of brands under pressure to make a lot of noise ended up more often than not getting into trouble. Shoes have been burned, people have been boycotted, there have been calls to throw away brands, and in general, lots of protests and everything. So what's happening here? Why are we suddenly expecting or taking such a strong stand against brand and brand communications? And we tried to understand that by doing a study in US, UK, and India. US, because as a leader in advertising and marketing, that's really where the genesis started, and we started the study. UK, because it was an English-speaking continental audience, but a different audience, to see was there any cultural difference that was driving it. And India predominantly only because we were interested to see it and see what actually happens. And when we asked the panel of consumers how important is it for the brands they like to have a point of view on issues of society today, we see India as usual. And you'll see it across the board with many data points. We top box a lot. And what I mean by top box is really researchers speak saying we tend to hold our opinions strongly. When asked a question, do you strongly agree to somewhat agree, we tend to say strongly agree. And therefore, all my data points, I'll try to combine both the things together. But even while combining it, we as Indians do tend to want brands to have a point of view. And we do like our brands to say something around societal issues. So let's look at it in a positive way. When a brand expresses a point of view that we might agree with, am I more likely to buy it? Because that's finally sort of the proof of the pudding. And yes, in India, we do tend to see that, yes, we're more likely to buy it. We're fairly in line with, if you'd see both the two boxes, sorry if I'm covering it, the data points is on this side, tends to be very much like the US. UK tends to be slightly more balanced. Around 51% said, yeah, okay, I'm more likely to buy, which also means 49% not that moved. And on the opposite side, if they end up being a brand expresses a view that you disagree with, are you likely to stop buying from them? And yes, again, we are likely to stop buying from them. We are likely to start moving our purchases away from it. And that's why I would like to call the Indian and the US buyer in that sense, belief-driven buyers who'd want to take a look at what brands are saying around them. And I'm going to run you guys through a couple of case studies. I'm sure all of you have seen it, but it gives me some time to relax and not speak continuously for 40 minutes. Very quickly going into the Nike campaign, right? Just to give us some context, it actually starts out in 2016. Colin Kaepernick is a quarterback. His team's doing really well. He's taken them all the way into the Super Bowl finals. He decides to protest against racial inequality and police brutality by taking the knee, essentially not standing up for the anthem, and actually bending down. So he first starts doing this by just sitting down on his seat. But what happens is that in America, you're not mandated to stand up in a sporting event for your national anthem, and it goes unnoticed. No one sees that he never got up. And therefore, he decides to take the knee to protest. Again, it takes about 2-3 weeks for it to be picked up. He finally gives a couple of interviews and mentions it, and that's when it starts getting traction. September 2017, the season comes around, and Trump, as commander-in-chief and the giver of many marketing moments, decides to tweet saying, I would like all owners to fire anyone who takes the knee. Which he doesn't get picked, by the way. So he sits out the season. He doesn't have a job now because he's obviously become a voice and seen as. But 200 athletes end up taking the knee. And then 1 year later, so now it's 2 years hence, the movement's going on. Then Nike came out with the ad. And we wanted to see it not so much from a communication point of view of how they made it, did it work, do we have an opinion or not, but really to see it from a data point of view and see, did it actually work for them or not? The data here is based on a product of ours called Brand Index, which essentially tracks brands on different metrics on claim data on a continuous daily basis and allows us to see what happens literally down to the day or down to a couple of hours to be able to see where the upticks happen or not happen. And so Nike comes out on September 3rd, and we already start seeing ad awareness starts going up. And by September 11th, 12th, they've already gone up by 15 points. That's huge. I'm sure they're like celebrating at the moment in the office when this happens. And word of mouth, the way we ask word of mouth is, which of these brands have you spoken to your friends or family in the last 2 weeks? Starts going up and substantially to almost 20 points. So not only is it creating a great amount of awareness, people are really talking about it. So far so good, but it also has a negative backlash, right? People are burning their shoes, people are tweeting, we'll never buy Nike again. They're really upset, they want to call for a boycott. And then we wanted to see, did it work for their sales? And why did they do it? Because it did create a huge moment. And what we see here is purchase intent. Nike is already, and I'm going to come here so you guys can see, at around 30, while all the other bunch guys are bunched up around 10, 5 to 10. And we see Nike actually already head and shoulders above, take it a much, much higher level. They go up 10 points. 10 points on purchase intent is just unheard of. That's huge. And why do they do so well is what the data reveals. We tried to go into the profile of this buyer. And what we saw is that they tend to agree with statements like, I like the companies to have a moral message. Companies and their brands should be able to express how they feel. All of that is what we would call an activist mindset. So Nike customers, recent Nike customers, are already displaying a very activist mindset versus the general public. And even more importantly, down over there, if you see, and we actually see that recent Nike customers tend to like Colin Kaepernick a whole lot more than the general public. So what we do see from here is that Nike really did their homework. They knew who they were talking to. They were talking to their current customers. And they were trying to tell them that, hey, you know what? We are ready with a message that resonates with you, with a brand ambassador that resonates with you. And therefore, I think it worked really well. We now hop over continents and go into the UK and see the Gillette campaign. And I'm just going to play it so I get a break.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie.
Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool. Not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
even before we go into the data, what we do know about when the campaign came out is that this was not Gillette trying to talk to Gillette users, right? It was Gillette trying to talk to a new consumer. The brief was, let's connect with the millennial guys who are probably going to Dollar Shave Club and new other such things. And the campaign actually only came out online. It was not meant to be a TV advert, and it was a conscious attempt for them to try and grow the consumer base. But unfortunately, it kind of ended up having a backlash. And personally, I feel it's part of the backlash was also because they've never really taken this position before, right? It's a very clever line. It's a great twist on their punchline, but it wasn't something that was expected by people. And unfortunately for them, the cohort of their already existing consumer was much larger than the smaller consumer set that they were trying to reach. And when you ask people, majority tend to agree with something like the problems were blamed on all men, and they were actually maybe displayed only by a small, minuscule amount of men, and it shouldn't be blamed on men as mankind. And that definitely did create a backlash. But let's see in terms of data, did it actually work for them? Mixed. It ended up, purchase intent again increased, hell of a lot, especially with the millennials, so the consumer they were trying to speak to. It also increased with women. Although women are not their core group, they have launched women's products. It did help them there a little bit, but overall sales didn't improve. And I think it's a partially because they're already in an industry it's not been growing for them in the UK, right? It's already flattening out. They've had a couple of years of negative growth. So I wouldn't say the campaign completely failed, but it could have been better executed. Moving homewards bound, and let's look at some of the Indian sort of ads. Some of the stuff that we wanted to check was that a lot of Indians do tend to think and agree with the statement that brands are being a bit exploitative and taking advantage of social issues only to promote themselves. So a lot of them tend to feel that maybe these brands are not as well-meaning when they make issues, make commercials around it, but tend to use it more for self-promotion. And a majority of them would actually like them to only take a stand when it's relevant to them. So what they're saying is like, hey, you know what? We do want brands to take a stand, but we'd like you to do it when it's relevant, when you have a voice in that matter, and I should then therefore listen to you. What should you talk about? And what we see, no surprises, is that religion and politics come somewhere towards the bottom. It comes even after other issues. So what we are seeing is that we are a little bit sensitive. We don't want commercial brand entities necessarily telling us anything much about politics or religion. We're okay for them to talk about environment. We're okay. These are safe topics, women's safety, women's equality, even LGBTQ rights. These are still considered okay, but certain topics maybe not so much. And now we'll try and see some of these ads from the point of view of the kind of data that we've seen, and I think someone already referenced this
नाना
ad.
ये देखो शील्ड लेग हेलमेट
होमवर्क हो गया?
मम्मी ये देखो
फिर दाग लगा दिया. पापा ये लीजिए आपके घर जाने की टिकट. Hello, yeah, I'm just going to send you the email in 5 minutes. Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'm working on the present.
मेरी छोटी सी गुड़िया कितनी बड़ी हो गई. घर घर खेलती थी, अब घर संभालती है, ऑफिस संभालती है. आई एम सो प्राउड एंड आई एम सो सॉरी. सॉरी कि ये सब तुम्हें अकेले करना पड़ता है. सॉरी कि जब तुम घर घर खेलती थी तो मैंने तुम्हें रोका नहीं. ये नहीं कहा कि ये सिर्फ तुम्हारा काम नहीं है, तुम्हारे हस्बैंड का भी है. पर कहता भी कैसे है.
और मेरी ग्रीन शर्ट धो देना.
मैंने भी तो कभी तुम्हारी मम्मी की हेल्प नहीं की, और तुमने जो देखा वही सीखा. तुम्हारे हस्बैंड ने भी बचपन में यही देखा होगा. घर घर खेलते वक्त वो टीवी देखने की या न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ने की एक्टिंग करता होगा, और तुम जैसी कोई छोटी सी लड़की चाय बनाने की एक्टिंग करती होगी. उसके डैड की तरफ से सॉरी, तुम्हारे डैड की तरफ से सॉरी, और हर उस डैड की तरफ से सॉरी जिसने कई कई सालों से एक गलत एग्जाम्पल सेट किया. पर अभी भी देर नहीं हुई. इस सॉरी के साथ मैं अपनी तरफ से एक छोटी सी कोशिश करूंगा कि घर के काम में मम्मी की हेल्प करूं। किचन का किंग ना बन पाऊं तो कम से कम लॉन्ड्री में तो हाथ बटाऊं। इतने साल एक गलत एग्जाम्पल सेट किया है, अब कुछ सही कर जाऊं। तुम्हारा पापा।
So whatever we know from the data, one, is it relevant? Fairly relevant, right? Share the load, definitely about the category, if not about the brand. They are talking to a target audience, which is predominantly still women going out to buy the stuff. Who's going to respond to this? And in terms of an issue, extremely safe. People don't mind you having a point of view and would like to see communication around women's equality. And so on all points, I think it really worked. And they've taken that forward. They've used it now, I think, for about 2.5 years, pushing the envelope on this fairly well. Havells. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this ad. I haven't. But just to set context, I was trying to find the TVC, couldn't find it. It was pulled off everywhere. Essentially, it's a young girl. I love the line. It's Hawa Badlegi, which goes really well. But at the end, this one in the series is about a young woman with a father. I think in a line for a college admission. She has a form with her. The form has a place to fill for her caste, which she leaves out. And she decides not to fill out. And I think the voiceover goes on about how it's about self-respect. And she wants to do it on her own because Hawa badal rahi hai. And it ended up having a massive backlash. Why? I think because it mixes both religion and politics, two taboo topics. It's not really relevant. Why does Havells suddenly wake up and wants to lecture us on what people should or should not do? And finally, just really bad timing. I don't think that they could have planned for, but unfortunately, the Rohit Varmula suicide happens and the ad's already on air, and it ends up having a huge backlash. So, bad example, what didn't work. Now I'm going to share another one.
I met this man and I fell in love, which then didn't work out. We came from different backgrounds. We were together for about 6 years. The small fights, the silly fights, they still crack me up. I miss them. Yeah. The problem rose when my family got to know that he was not a Hindu. He was a Muslim. Families chose to prioritize that over our happiness. So I would have had a great friend. We would have gotten married.
Aditi.
Where did you come from? I actually enjoyed the fights.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me?
I accept.
Yeah, okay, fine. You tell me what.
Memory problem. There was a world that two of us created and suddenly it was gone.
We should have not let go of it so easily. Hold on to it. Fight for it. There's nothing without love.
This was again only digitally run. Not sure it worked. And we all sort of understand, right? Like they ended up having, this is one of the series, they ended up taking a stand on a couple of issues. But it was a weird iteration of Pasa Auna, right? I mean, having the confidence of a great smile, no bad breath, to get people together. Very different from free to love or feel free to love, which Close Up couldn't fully own. So it didn't have a very strong negative backlash on them. They didn't have to actually pull out the communication, but it also did not in any way help the brand or build it for the future. Another thing that we've seen, especially in India, is that you end up getting into trouble because not you as the brand, but the brand endorser ends up opening their mouth and saying something you maybe shouldn't have said. It's not much we can try and do, but we wanted to try and understand, do people even like having safe brand ambassadors, or do they like to have opinionated brand ambassadors? And the data seems to suggest that no, they do like people to have outspoken views. They do respond to celebrities who have specific and strong viewpoints and on causes, and they would like them to use their celebrity to further those causes. So if all of that marries together, fantastic. Sometimes it doesn't, but honestly, like, we have an example, but I wouldn't know what to tell Snapdeal, right? Like, I mean, it's very difficult for them to have tested this before he made the statements he made, apart from them just simply knowing that their brand ambassador was someone who is going to have opinions on topical subjects today and is going to say stuff that will make people uncomfortable. And that was a call they had to take before figuring out if they should sign him or not. Brands that just worked. I wanted to end on a positive note and say what really, really works. Last factoid of the day, so no more boring stuff, but what's the most effective way to take a stand? And what we see is that people really respond to the examples of action taken. They want you to go beyond the campaign. They want you to go beyond just riding on the bandwagon and making communication around it. They'd like brands to be able to show what they're doing about a specific issue. They'd like them to encourage followers to take action. So they want it to be definitely a positive intervention of sorts. And I'm just going to show you a great example. Absolutely, I mean, haven't seen any other brand do this and get away with it. I'm sure most of you guys might be familiar with it, but Patagonia is essentially an outdoors clothing brand. They have activism in their DNA. So they've already supported a lot of NGOs. They actively support anyone who tries to work around environmental issues. And again, Trump, the giver of many marketing goodies, comes out with a communication saying that the federal funds cannot be used to maintain certain national parks, and therefore he will allow development around those national parks or within those national park boundaries. And they swing into action. Almost overnight, he makes a statement, and overnight they pull out all product information from their main website, and the Patagonia website becomes "The President Stole Your Land." Again, very hard-hitting, very provocative, and they come out for the first time in their history, a campaign on Super Bowl. They only buy one single spot, and this is what they do.
I can be a pretty cynical guy. The one thing that really keeps me going are these wild places that are the real soul of this country. A great part of my life, I've been climbing and fishing and hunting on public lands. I've been a successful businessman because of the lessons I learned in the outdoors. My business was built on having wild places. Public lands have never been more threatened than right now because you have a few self-serving politicians who want to sell them off and make money. Behind the politicians are the energy companies and the big corporations that want to use up those natural resources. It's just greed. This belongs to us. This belongs to all of the people in America. It's our heritage. I hope my kids and grandkids will have the same experiences that I have. Our Secretary of the Interior, Zinke, has said he believes in public lands. Let's hold him to it. Let's not let him back down on that.
They actually end up raising money, taking the president to court. The case is still in court. But they made such a strong statement that the entire category needed to start making a statement and ends up joining them to support them on this stand. And our data did show, and they ended up having the best sales year ever. Because if you are someone who ends up being who likes to wear outdoor clothing, even if it is you're an urban person trying to project another image, you are going to support that message. And finally, back to home, Savlon, again, something you guys have all seen, but I think it's just really well executed and takes it to heart. It's not just a campaign, it creates an intervention, it creates action, and it's a fantastic example.
Kids love to use their hands. Kids explore the world with their hands. In India, they use their hands for one more thing: eating food. Not washing their hands with soap is one of the main causes for illnesses and dropouts.
वो पानी में हाथ डालता है और अपने कपड़े से ही पूछता है। छोटे बच्चे हैं, उसे जल्दी भूख लगती है। साबुन वापरतात का?
नहीं।
कोई आदत नहीं होती, घर में भी माँ बाप को नहीं सिखाते, इसलिए सब बच्चे ये नहीं सीख सकते।
So we gave shape to a simple idea. We infused chalk sticks with soap. Introducing Savlon Healthy Hands Chalk Sticks. These work just like regular chalk sticks. But at lunch break, they did more than just writing. The chalk powder turned into soap on its own. Through such initiatives, Savlon Swasth India is reaching out to schools across the country. Kids' health will now be in good hands, their own.
That's it from my end. Open to questions. Just to summarize, do take a stand. Feel free to take a stand, but please do it with some amount of caution. There's both risk and reward attached to this strategy. Thank you.